I'm on the last part of my chapter called Gardens, chapter 17, and this is part 3. And if you remember, I've been trying unsuccessfully to get into those gardens of Mr. Bantam's. And this time I thought I would surely succeed by entering the fancy dress competition as a flower girl. And I looked absolutely lovely dressed by Mam's beautiful sewing. But funnily enough, a strange thing helped me, and that's in the background here. You might just see a bit of old newspaper. And that is key to the story that I'm going to read. Of course, I didn't win the competition. You'll have guessed that. It was Edmund that won it, and he strutted up for the prize dressed as Robin Hood. It was a bought outfit from Hull, and there was a bit of muttering about it being unfair and that we couldn't compete with him if he bought an outfit. He went forward to the judges' table and was presented with his prize, and we all clapped politely, and I didn't win anything. Then up strode a photographer from the Hull Daily Mail, and to my surprise, he didn't take Edmund's photo. He should have done. He'd won. And he didn't even take one of Virginia, who was on a float. Instead, he went to the WI float. And he didn't bother with Mam or Auntie Peggy or Auntie Martha. He got an old lady instead. He took her hand, and she looked lovely in a bonnet and an old long flowery dress, and her basket was full of daisies, and her face was creased with smiles. Then I recognised her. It was Doreen's grandma, and I couldn't help but smile myself as I watched her kindly face. Then a funny thing happened. I found myself being steered towards that old lady by the photographer, and he stood me next to her, and she laughed and put her hand on my shoulder. "How lovely you look! Will you stand by me and have your photograph taken? You'll be doing me a great favour." "As I'm very nervous," she said. My goodness, me to have my photograph taken. Flash went his camera, and flash again, and we smiled and laughed, and the lady hugged me. But the excitement all died down when it was over, and we were back at our school playground again, and all the adults started clearing up. I stood there waiting for Mam and Dad, but suddenly I saw the gate to Mr. Bantam's garden was open. Nothing unusual about that, you might think. I'd seen it loads of times when it was open. And I mean open, wide open. Well, this time I just couldn't resist. I took a quick look round to see that nobody was looking, and then I went down the path, through the gate, and down the path. It was easy. 1 minute I was in our playground, and the next minute I was in the garden of my dreams. At first I kept hidden among the bushes, which grew all along the side, so nobody could see me, and I only peeped out every now and again. But it was quite safe. Everybody was busy clearing up, and nobody was bothering about me, so I explored everywhere. I sat on that seat that everybody had been talking about, where you were supposed to knit if you were a girl, or read if you were a boy. I didn't do anything. I just sniffed at the bright flowers and listened to the birds singing and chased huge bumblebees and hoped they would go in my hair. I was having a great time. But then suddenly I heard voices. Somebody was coming from down the path. So, quick as a flash, I climbed an old apple tree. This tree was nowhere near as hard to climb as our conker tree, where the magpie's nest were, and so in a few minutes I was high up and covered in leafy branches. I looked down and I saw Mr. Gray. He came into view, and there were plenty of bees here, so he would love it, but they didn't go in his head this time because he was wearing his best Trilby hat. And then I couldn't believe it, because I saw Miss McBride wearing a lovely turquoise floaty dress. And guess what? She went up to him and held his hand. Just imagine me and Miss McBride and gentle, pumbly Mr. Gray holding hands. That could only mean one thing. They were going to get married. I just sat there on my twiggy perch, hardly daring to breathe in case they saw me. But I need not have worried. They only had eyes for each other, and they didn't look up, but strolled about, holding hands and talking and laughing. When I was quite sure they were out of sight, I scrambled down my tree and ran off as fast as I could back into the playground, hoping that nobody had seen me. But it seemed that somebody had seen me, because a few days later Mr. Bantam sent for me out of Miss McBride's class, and I went into his office trembling and with my heart beating even faster than when I'd climbed that conker tree. What excuse had I for trespassing? I hadn't earned my place in that garden because I could never do anything good enough. You have done something no one else had ever done in this school before, said Mr. Bantam in his deep, strict voice, and I trembled even more. You have been in... Here it comes. I've been in his garden when I haven't been good enough, when I haven't been special enough. You have been in the Hull Daily Mail. Look here. And he showed me a picture of me with Doreen's kind grandma. And we looked really good in our flower outfits, and Mr. Bantam was smiling now. This is just the sort of thing that gives this school a good name. You have been in the paper. I have not been in the Hull Daily Mail, he said. You have done it before me. I couldn't believe my luck. All my trying had come to nothing, and now at last I'd done something good without even knowing. I could even put getting my photo in the Hull Daily Mail on my What I Am Good At list. And that was 2 things I had in a very short time. I'm going to reward you. You can go in my garden for a whole hour this afternoon, beamed Mr. Bantam. And so I was allowed into his garden, the garden of my dreams. My dreams had come true. I even did a bit of loose knitting. I didn't need to spend time looking. I'd seen it all before. And of course, I didn't tell anyone that I'd been there already, not even Brenda. But there was something else I could really tell people. I told them that Mr. Gray and Miss McBride were going to get married, and all the kids, except Charlie, of course, thought I was very special indeed, because the next day Miss McBride came to school wearing an engagement ring with 3 bright, dreamy diamonds. And everybody was amazed that I was the first to know about it.